Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist, Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist, Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the...
All right. Good morning, everybody. My microphone just completely fell off my desk. I'm like, oh, that's nice. How you doing?
Great. I'm all right, man. How are you?
Good. Doing awesome. Hey, just want to welcome everybody to the Hump Day version of course, you're watching the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. And this is our Wednesday version. We got some really, really interesting things to talk about today. We're going to dive deep into DSCR loans, which Dylan's going to has some stuff prepared for. And we're going to look at a specific property, if I'm correct. Right, Dylan?
You know what, Larry? We can do the math on the specific property. I sent you the grid, and we'll just do the back numbers into the grid. So bear with me a second as I grab my calculator, because I left
no problem.
When I was
so
talking
guys, you again are watching the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. My name's Larry Shakman. I'm a broker. I'm the host of the show. I'm an author. I just released a book called The Top 10s of Real Estate, 32 top 10 lists that are proven to max out your profit when you sell, buy, or invest. So check it out. I'll give you some information on that later. I have to be careful with this microphone. We are actually streaming live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And we're just happy to have you here. We have another great show coming up this Saturday, live from the studios of WCPT 820 AM at 9 a.m., 9 to 10 a.m. And so lots of good things coming on. A little bit of house cleaning here. Remember, follow us on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'd love to have you guys along for the ride here. And Dylan, let's jump right into this, because
for sure.
I am super interested in this DSCR loan, and explain to everybody what is that a acronym for, and what exactly does that mean?
Sure. So the DSCR loan, Larry, is the acronym stands for a debt service coverage ratio. And the reason that is it literally is that. What are the payments, and what is going to happen if we make the loan? Can the property support the payments? And unlike lots of situations in lending where you say to yourself, hey, what's the debt to income ratio, and what's this and what's that, and all the moving pieces. This is, I think on one level, it is the greatest invention in lending since the crash, right? We've had a lot of product reduction, right? We had stated income loans and ninja loans, no income, no asset, no job, right? We used to make fun of those. And those are the loans that led to the crash. So the question then has become, how do we as an industry serve clients buying multi-unit properties in a way that helps them do business, but doesn't put them at risk? And so if you think about the concept of the debt service coverage ratio loan, what you have is, if you have whatever your down payment is, whatever your credit score is, and there's a grid, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Once you make that down payment, as long as the payment works for the program, meaning they're comfortable, and let's just say, for keep it easy for now, that we have a situation where the particular loan you're looking at has 3 rents and they total $5,000 or roughly $1,600-ish each, right?
Okay.
And the payment's $5,000. You'll get the loan. Now, that assumes a decent credit score, that assumes the right down payment. But what they're not going to do is ask you, what's the debt to income ratio of the borrower? So if you live in a house with your family that is comfortable but not cheap, and you drive a couple of normal cars, you may find yourself in a situation where you're like, I can't invest in real estate because my monthly debt to income in the standard underwriting of loans does not support me being able to make this payment, in spite of the fact that the rents pay the payment. And so this product has been brought to market in the last couple of years as honestly a common sense answer to that exact issue. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
So,
no, I'm interested in these loans because they're really, obviously, these are loans investors are going to use.
correct.
Now let's say somebody wants to buy a 3 flat and they're going to live in one of those. I didn't know if that was my phone or your phone.
No, it's mine. I can't get my do not disturb on. There it is.
No problem. So I didn't know if like, for instance, if somebody like me wanted to buy a 4 flat and I'm going to live in one of the units,
Right.
and I'm going to rent out the other 3, and can I use a DSCR loan, and if the other 3 pay the debt?
The answer to that is yes, you can.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an
Well,
investor.
I would argue, Larry, for the
You're an
purpose of
investor
our
anyway, if
conversation,
you're
that the
half
term investor is covering the person who is looking to own a 4-unit and live in one of them, right? Because
I agree.
That's a chore. Like, why would you sign up for that if you weren't having real estate investing agendas for the long run, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing. So with that said, let's assume the term investor is fairly loose, but yes, an owner occupant can live in it for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
So let's turn around and talk a little bit about the property you sent me, but you need to give me the address again, because I can't find it in my email or text.
Okay. Give me a second here. I believe I have it right here. Okay. It's an off-market property. I don't have the exact address, but it's in,
Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it off of the Ring Central. You sent it to me by text at Ring Central. You did that yesterday?
No, I think I sent it to you by email.
Email. Okay. Let me check my email. So
And
a little chaotic. People, Larry, are getting to see today the fancy stuff that we do behind the scenes before they're watching us make the sausage. Let's go with that.
There you go. So yeah, this property is in Dalton, and
all right. Do you want to show people the property? I've got it up now.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, this property, I'm looking at a different one. I'm looking at one of Dane's properties we were looking at last week. The property I sent you is a different one. It's really kind of a turnkey rental property. It's already been rehabbed.
Right.
They're looking for like $225 is their asking price, right?
Right.
They are, the ARV is supposedly around 315.
So does this property need the work, or is it already
No,
done?
it's done.
All right.
It's done. It's completely done. So from what I could tell, there's no rehab needed on this property.
Okay.
They're asking 225. That is the starting price. There's my air quotes again.
Yeah.
That's the starting price they're looking for.
What do you think it'll realistically sell for?
Well, I'm just going by their ARV. Their ARV is 315. So
Right.
if somebody wants to, I'm looking at this as a buy and hold.
Okay.
All right. So if somebody wanted to buy this property, get it, let's say for 220, right? It's
Right.
already been rehabbed. And its ARV is 315. Let's say all of those assumptions are correct. So you're going to be able to refi out of this property once you get a renter in there. And let's say that appraises out at 315. So you're going to get 80% of that 315.
Okay. So we're going to buy it for the 315, or we're going to buy it for closer to 225 up front?
No, we're going to buy it for, let's say, 220.
All right. So we buy for 220. So here's the good news. Let's turn around, and I'm going to go to the grid that I sent you. And
I didn't get it. But let me, did you email it?
Yeah, I emailed it, but I'll forward it here.
Can you bring it up on your end? I think you can.
I probably can, but I'm jumping between screens, so that's going to be chaotic for people. I sent it to your reo-property.com address.
Okay, give me a second here.
Yeah, I'll send it for my personal email as well. So yeah, because I have to go from screen to screen to screen, right? I have the property up, and I have the podcast up, and
No problem. I'm going to bring it up. Give me 1 second.
If you want.
And bear with us, folks, because
Yeah, no
I want
problem.
you guys to see this. This is
so show the grid.
Yeah, I'm bringing that
You've
up.
got it, right?
I do have the grid. Give me 1 second here.
Cool. Again, more sausage making, everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, check it out.
All
There's
right.
the sausage.
So this is the internal grid we work off of, right? So we can't send this to the public. I know I've sent it to you. You're a professional. Don't forward it. But generally, every loan product in the country has this. Conventional Fannie Mae loans have this. It's a much cleaner sheet because there are less variables. But it basically, you can see, Larry, in the top, the axis. And this is the grid I mentioned to you on the radio show. And it puts us in a situation where you say, okay, on the across grid is your loan to value. So if you take your percentage and subtract from 1%, you get your percentage down payment, right? So 50% LTV is 50% down. Moving across and to the right, you get, for example, all the way on the right, 80% LTV or 20% down. Now, the difference between that is 7.25% and 8.25% on the rate, as you can see, for a 760 borrower. The down grid will tell you what the costs are for the given credit score in the situation. So you basically just find your spot on the grid to make this work. And so it's fairly straightforward in this regard until you get into the section underneath called program notes. And that's where your lending professionals come in, right? And so, for example, if you look at the notes, just the last one, hey, second appraisals are required for loan amounts over $2 million. The thing they don't tell you there is if you're going to turn around and do a $2 million loan, and you're buying for, let's say, 2.5 million at 80%, right? Right. And then you find yourself in a situation that one appraisal comes in at 2.6 million. You're like, oh, great, we're selling for 2.5. Look at us. Second one comes in at 2.45. that $50,000, the lower of the two appraisals will be used, right? So that's just a catch in the business. But you can do all sorts of things here. So these are generally all 30-year term mortgages. You can see the property types that are eligible: single family residence, condos, warrantable and non-warrantable, right? So if you have broken buildings in the city, and there are some still in there, and by broken, I mean the condo association is broken, right? We've had for years and years the situation existing where some of the buildings in the crash in the city of Chicago proper, they're 20-unit buildings, and you want to buy 1 unit in there. So that's really a 1 unit, not a 20 unit, right? Because it's for the purpose of how we do this. And that 1 unit is not eligible for Fannie Mae financing because the percentage of units owned by investors is too high.
Yeah. Right.
And so the property becomes non-warrantable, meaning that Fannie Mae will not warranty the validity of the condo project. And so it's impossible to invest except that you need a warrantable condo like this. So there's a lot of different options. The only thing they really don't want to do is things bigger than 10 acres, right? They don't want to be in the farmland business at this lender.
Like I'm about to be in.
You, with that listing, my man, I think you're going to have a challenge. You need special financing for that, for sure.
Oh,
but,
no doubt. No
but
doubt.
not to bore everybody with the details here. But you can see that we can serve a lot of clients. So just going with the blue headlines, right? Loan terms. They'll tell you, hey, how do you do this? Is it strictly a 30-year fix? No, it's not. You can do a 5-year ARM. You can do a 10 to 40-year interest only. Now, all of these things cost money, as you can see on the far right side, that we have to work through. Like, hey, what's the charge to go interest only? What's the charge to do this? They want you to borrow a minimum of $100,000. So cheap properties are probably not in play. They want to make sure that they give us very specific stuff. If you've been late with your house payment, that's a problem. This title called Housing History Credit Event Seasoning, right? You have a situation where money gets a little tight for a while because you get in a car accident, you got to buy an extra car. That becomes, and now you got a late payment because you're carrying 2 cars. How long do you have to season off of that? So when we pre-approve people, we run them through every one of these different instances. But you can see the third thing in column 3 is column 2 is a popular one, and that's the ITIN. Do you not have a social security number? Do you just have a tax ID number? And that often is for people who are not citizens, et cetera, et cetera. And so what do? They have a program for that. So they'll tell us, look, at the DSCR qualification, the total borrower income is not disclosed, no debt to income ratio. They'll take the market rents. And again, the market rents are going to come.
They don't even look at W-2s, right? I mean,
no, not at all.
Yeah. So
now you can do a full doc at this place and they'll go through that. You probably get a better deal, but we're just talking about the DSCR right now.
Now, is there any complication if you acquire a property with a DSCR loan and then and let's say you used the OPM method for your down payment, right? So you use somebody else's money for the down payment that you're paying 12% on. And you're going to want to refi out of that property at the ARV, which is going to come in at about 315. Can you refi out of that property? Or is there a certain amount of time you have to hold that property before you refi out of it?
So the answer, Larry, is in the lower right-hand corner under the umbrella area of prepayment penalty information.
Okay.
All right? And so you can see they're going to tell you there everything that happens with a prepayment penalty. And so if you get this loan, you can turn around and you're going to get a 3-year prepayment penalty. So you got to keep the loan for 3 years or it's going to cost you money. However, there are workarounds. So if you think this is a great deal and the math works and I love it and you're cool to go to 5 years, they'll reduce your rate by a quarter point. You can see that 0.25, right? So that's how we read that. At 4 years, it's a little less. At 3 years, it's a little less. And then at 2 years, they're going to turn around. If you're going to take a 2-year prepay, they want to charge you 0.25 to the rate. So you just add it to the rate, right? If we're going to put 20% down at a 760 credit score like we saw before, that rate's 8.25 in the upper right of the pricing grid. Well, you would just take 8.5, and now you have a 2-year prepay, not a 3. Or half to cost. So if you're buying for $220,000, you just pay an extra $1,100 fee at closing.
Now,
So
what if you want? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's much like going to Gibson's for a steak dinner, right? So you put this grid up, and you're like, look, what do you want to do? Do you want a potato? Do you want a salad? Same thing here. Do you want to turn around and have the option to pay it off? In the 1-year prepay, it's 1% to the cost, and they don't even put a rate option. They just charge you. You want to have no prepay? 2%. So it'll cost you $4,000. If you're paying 12 to somebody, and in this case, you wouldn't be, right? Because you're going to use this for the acquisition at 20% down, you do it at 8.25. So if you want to refinance from 8.25 to the 6s to 6, let's say, the only question I would ask you is, do you think you will save enough money to make that worth it? And so the math on that is fairly simple, and we can help with it. Let's keep it easy. Let's say you can move from 8.25 to 6.25. Once you get in, you get a tenant, you get everything stabilized, you confirm that the value is now closer to 3.25 than 2.25. Just the 2.25 or the 200-ish, right? The 180 really that you borrowed, the 2% difference in rate, this one's fairly linear, right? Is it worth 2% in upfront costs or $4,000 to save 2% by reducing the mortgage rate? So let's say we buy for 220. I'm on the calculator now, so apologize for looking down.
Right.
We put 20% down, so we get an 80% loan, or 176. Right? So our 176 at 8.25, because we have a 760 plus credit score and 20% down on a 30-year amortization is $1,322 a month just for the loan payment, right? Now, if you turn around and you say, what happens if I go to 6.25? That payment drops from $1,322 to $1,083. Okay. So the difference between the two is $238 a month. So if I pay the prepay for 2% of 176 at the closing of the DSCR loan, all right, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to have a fee of $35.20. So this question of, should I pay that fee up front? And this is a little bit of a guess, because you have to know what, you have to have a confident idea that rates are going to drop, or that the cash out is worth it to you. Okay.
Right.
So you pay the $35.20, and on the 176, which is the only place you're being charged, the difference is that $238. So now if I take $35.20, the cost to buy out the prepay, or to buy it down to 1 year, right? Or no, to buy it down to no prepay. So we're not going to have a prepay. So I can get rid of this loan in 4 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And if I can get that $238 savings, then I will recover my $35.20
that you paid
in, right. So I pay $238 a month in 14.78 months. Once I have the new loan. So the complicating factor is, if the place is now worth 300, let's use a round number, and 80% of that is 240. So you're going to cash out, right? And so you're going to cash out from 176 to 240.
And you're going to pay your investor off for the down payment.
Investor off, etc. Now that's $64,000. So the loan will be $64,000 bigger and will look, because it's $64,000 bigger, more expensive. Because if you take 240 instead of by the 176 and you take it by the 240, that payment is $1,477 or $150 more. So what a person has to be, and this is why you hire the professionals, right? You hire me, you hire you to go through these numbers and break it down. Because if you look at the 1477, you're like, well, that's higher. I don't know that I want to pay the prepay. But it's only higher because you're borrowing $64,000 more money. Whereas in this situation, apples to apples, 176 on the initial loan to 176 of the 240 on the secondary loan, the 238 is the interest savings. So the analysis on should I take the prepay or not, buy out the prepay, is directly related to the amount you save every month and the cost it gets you to get that savings.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of this comes down to the rents you're getting too, because if your rents support that, you know, when you refi out of this, pay your investor off that you used their money for the down payment, did the DSCR loan. And if your rents support that increase in the monthly payment as a result of the larger loan, you're golden.
Yeah, exactly. So let's do that. So let's take out 1477. What do you think the taxes are on a property like this without a homeowner's exemption? Because it's an expensive area of town from a tax standpoint.
Yeah. So let's just say 2.5%.
All right. So it'll be 2.5%. We're going to transact. Let's call it 2.5% of the 300, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 7,500, right?
7,500. Yeah.
Okay. So
I was going to say 75,000. I haven't had my full.
So let's call it 7,200 and keep the numbers around. So that's $600 a month. Yeah. We've got investors insurance, right? Let's assume that's $200 a month. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and that's so you can keep, you know, quality insurance on in place. So you're at 2277 principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, right? And so I saw in the listing for the property that it says there are comparable rents at 2,400.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you can get 2,400, but let's say you can get 22.
It's a 5-bedroom.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Yeah.
Let's assume for the purpose whether it's 24 or it's 23 or but in essence, at this payment, you can get the DSCR loan to wash out the payment. So now you're at 100% coverage and you can get this deal done.
Yeah.
And that means that because Larry, the payment is lower when you borrow the initial 176 to acquire it at 220, you can come in and you can acquire the property using the DSCR loan. And then in theory, you could use, or you could come in, Larry, honestly, you could also, this is a DSCR loan to DSCR loan refinance, right? We're talking about acquiring it at this 8.25. If you need a hard money loan at 12, well, all bets are off. Then you have to work out the prepay with your hard money lender. But the only analysis you're going to do is that second half analysis of my payment's going to be $22.72. Can I get the rent for that? And the most important thing is to understand with your real estate professional, because this is where you can get in a jam. This particular property, because it's been rehabbed, does not need a hard money loan to acquire or investor money to acquire, right? You could do this with this DSCR loan. However, if you're in a situation where you are going to use hard money to acquire, you have to be certain of your ARV, your after repaired value. And the reason I say it, and your market level rents.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a little bit of an algebra equation that we're solving for, right? You have to know that new $1,477 payment at 6.25 and the $600 a month and the $200 will allow you to get new financing at a DSCR. And put that $64,000 in your pocket.
So that's a really good point. So you are going to be refining from a DSCR loan to another DSCR loan.
Or in theory, you could refinance to a conventional loan if your numbers support it.
Why would you do that as opposed to doing the DSCR
Rates.
loan?
Rates.
Okay.
If you can get permanent financing with a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, you want to do that. It's cheaper. It's cheaper by a fair margin, right? That's how you're going to get 6.25. You don't see 6.25 anywhere on this DSCR grid.
And with a DSCR loan, is there any room? Is there any way? Because I thought I read this somewhere. Is there any way that you can wrap everything into that DSCR loan? In other words, rehab costs. And well, I'm assuming you can wrap the rehab costs and the purchase into the DSCR loan.
No, it is not a rehab product. It is not a renovation product. You need a renovation loan, and a renovation loan is probably a conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah, I don't want
that rabbit hole. It'll be insane.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't want to confuse those two things. So if you're of the, like, we've spoken with Sam Prim, who's a big fan of leveraging debt with other people's money. If your intention is to buy this property at 220 and put 20% down, is it a required 20% on a DSCR loan all the time?
You can see here on this grid, Larry, that if you take a look at the top grid again, it runs from left to right at 50% to 80% LTV. You see that in the dark blue?
Yeah. Yes.
There's no option for less or for more than 80%. So you have to put a minimum of 20% down, and you will get a better deal every 5% you put down.
Okay. So let's say
again, when we talk to people, look, you've got great options. Like even if you've got a 620 credit score, right? You've had some credit challenges in the past, but you're like, look, I see my real estate future as an investor, and I want to do this DSCR loan. You can do this. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's going to cost you 9.25 instead of, or 9,625 instead of 7,625 to put 30% down. But if you got the right deal, it might be worth it. And if you got the right deal and you were able to get into a property like the one we've been talking about here today and add value to it over a year or two and come back and do a new loan, your payment history may improve your credit score, et cetera, et cetera. We don't coach people on credit scores. We don't make credit score promises. But the more you pay your bills and the more stuff that's on your credit that you pay, the better your credit score becomes over time.
Okay. So somebody like Sam, who always uses OPM, right? Other people's money, even for down payments like this, in a lot of cases.
Sure.
And he's going to buy this property for 200. Let's say he gets it for 220. Okay. Sure. And he's going to put $44,000 down, and he's going to use somebody else's money at 12% annualized,
right?
And annualize it at 12%. And he plans on refining out of this property within probably 8 months and pay that investor back their $44,000 plus 12% annualized, whatever that is. That's possible with this kind of loan, as long as the rents are going to
meet the new payment,
the new debt.
And so the risk in that transaction, as Sam describes, is but I think that risk is mitigated, Larry, by Sam's formula, which we talked about when he was on 2 weeks ago. And that is, you have to do the after repaired value, right? Minus your costs plus that 25% cushion, right? So you have to acquire it at a cost that you're certain after the work you will get out of it and you will have equity. And so when that's the case, you're going to be fine. Because the most important thing is, if you're going to use that type of hard money lending, which is absolutely a tool, absolutely priced right for the risk in the market that the lenders are taking, but also that the buyers are taking, then you have to be able to have a plan to get out of that. And the DSCR loan can be that for people, as long as you're solving for that variable of what are the rents going to be once the work is done.
And they're probably going to be the same if you're refining out of it 8 months later. In all likelihood,
for sure. But the question, look, I think one of the things, Larry, that we have here is this example of the property we're using today can be a little confusing because they say it doesn't need work.
Right, exactly.
And it's already completed. So you're in theory buying it turnkey. So you're really only doing the last part in this transaction. But I think we've talked over the last few weeks about examples of acquire, fix, grow the value, and then extract that value to go do the next thing and let this transaction cover its own tabs. And when you're doing that, this DSCR loan can cover a gap. What is that gap? That is the gap between acquiring it with a Fannie Mae loan and then having to go back to Fannie Mae and be like, look, I did this 6 months ago. And you've done FHA transactions, not that that's Fannie Mae. But in FHA and Fannie Mae, there are rules about how long since a seller acquired it in terms of seasoning, in terms of the work done, in terms of that documentation, in order to be able to take cash out. It's challenging. And so at the end of the day, it's actually easier to just sell the house in that situation if you acquire it with a Fannie Mae loan. The DSCR loan is not asking those questions. The DSCR loan is asking, what are the rents? How much are you trying to borrow? Does it fit our grid? And then as long as the payments are covering the mortgage, we're good.
Yeah. It's a great product for investors to take a really hard look at. And like, for instance, with this property you're talking about, you nailed it when you said it's a little bit different because it's already rehabbed. So if you were buying this same property instead of at 220 or 225 because it's already rehabbed and turnkey ready to go, all you need to do is get a renter. You may, let's say this property needed $50,000-$60,000 in work, and now you're getting this property instead of at 220, you're getting this property for 160 or 150. Now we're looking at a whole different scenario because
a whole other animal, man.
Yeah, because if the ARV is still going to be 315 or thereabouts, and you're buying it for 160 and putting 50 in, now you're up to 210, and you're golden.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we're getting a little weedy on the numbers, but I think that one of the things that people should take away from this is not that we need to show you these numbers and that you need to understand these numbers to figure this out.
Right.
What I think we're showing people is our expertise is in the ability to help you take the transaction you are identifying as one you might like to do and figure out if we can make this work for you.
Yeah. And this is one way you can do that. I mean, listen, you could buy a 4-flat with an FHA loan too and live in one of the units.
But the challenge there that we didn't discuss anywhere in this grid because it's not there is those FHA 3 and 4 units have the dual track qualification. Mm-hmm. So like the DSCR loan, the market rents have to pay the payment.
Yeah.
And I'm very specific when I say market rents, because if you buy a 3 unit, you've got 2 rentals and an owner's unit. And the appraiser will give a value for the owner's unit in terms of what it can fetch on a monthly rental basis. And when that happens, that's your number. And so you could be qualified from a debt to income ratio. As a matter of fact, we did a deal recently for somebody who had this situation. We did the deal for them on a debt to income basis. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. They came to us and we had to find non-FHA financing for them. Why? Because the following. The lender they were working with told them they could do it and qualified them only on a debt to income basis. Mm-hmm. And they did not go through and do the market rent analysis where they assigned a value to the owner's unit on the 3 unit as well as the other 2 units. To do an FHA loan in this circumstance, the loan must cash flow from a payment standpoint. And so the thing is that there's no flexibility there. It has to both meet the DTI and the monthly payment thing. So the
Okay.
challenge for that borrower was he met the DTI, but he didn't meet the self-sufficiency. We're now talking about the reverse. You meet the self-sufficiency, but you don't have the debt to income. So you can't go FHA, even though you meet the self-sufficiency, but you can use a DSCR loan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's an option. I mean, it's another option for people to take a
It is a
really
great
hard look at.
tool in your real estate arsenal.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can see here, it's not the cheapest loan. So there has to be, they charge an underwriting fee of $16.95, right? That's more than what goes on in the market. You're looking at a couple of percent potentially to buy out the prepay if that's going to be your thing, right? So there has to be some meat on the bone in the transaction. But when you're looking at properties like this, there's often enough meat on the bone to make sure that you can do what you need to do.
Yeah. So here's the thing that we can kind of dovetail off of with this, because I think one of the things Sam said, and even one of the things Ivan and Jackie brought up, Miranda Baum, who we talked to last week, who are real estate developers in Chicago. I think the thing you have to do, guys, is become experts at finding distressed properties, because these properties, like the one we're talking about today, that needs no work at all, it's already been completely rehabbed, and it's a turnkey property, those are few and far between. The typical, I think, the typical property I think you're going to use this loan on is a distressed property, one way or another, that's going to need some work, that has some issues, and you're going to get it at a price that once you fix it up, that ARV is going to cover all of these things, right, including paying off your hard money, your private money loan lender or hard money lender at around 12%, including paying off the prepay penalty. Sure. If you haven't done that up front.
Larry, I think the important thing to understand is, look, if you finance an acquisition in the 12% area, even on as little as $200,000, getting to an 80% loan at 8.25%, like we see here in the example we've been using all day, will save you $400 a month in cash flow.
Yeah.
And that's critical in terms of making the math work. And look, the thing may not cash flow at $400 higher, right? If that payment's $2,600, but the rents are only $2,400, you're dead in the water. And look, your hard money lenders want to be out of your deal, right? Like they want to make that loan today, January 2024. They 100% don't want to enter 2025 with you in that loan.
Like and same thing with private money lenders.
Right. They want you to get in, earn a return, and get out and get more permanent financing in place. Well, you can only get more permanent financing in really one of three places. You can get yourself a Fannie Mae loan, you can get yourself an FHA loan if you're going to live in it, or you can get yourself a DSCR loan. That's it.
And the new DSCR loan is, let's say we're at 6.5 now.
Right.
Nothing's changed with your credit. You're still at around 780. The new DSCR loan at 315.
Well, it's going to be 80% of 315, right? So that's 80%
of 315. So on that new DSCR loan that you're financing out of, you're going to put down $60,000, let's say.
Well, that's if you're buying. But if you already bought the place and you're buying out your hard money lender, you're just paying off your hard money lender and extracting whatever cash, right? So at the end of the day, if you've turned around and acquired a property in the 220 area and you've now financed at 320, you're trying to put that $65,000 we talked about into your pocket. And so is that going to cost you some money? Sure. It'll cost you $4, $5, $7,000 in transaction fees. But, you're going to turn around and have a payment that is covered by the tenants and the cash after the expenses.
Yeah. And your lender paid off. Your hard
hard money lender paid off, and they're looking for you to go find the next deal and do it again.
Exactly. And guess what else? Every month those tenants are paying your mortgage down pretty much every month. In most cases in our lifetime, your property's going up in value.
Right.
And you own a property having never spent a dime of your own money.
Well, and remember, Larry, that one of the things that is great about the equity building that I think people forget about when you're buying real estate, investment real estate in particular, is you have two things going on, and you hinted around them. You mentioned them both, but I want to tie them together. Number one, you're going to turn around and see your value increase over time. The longer you hold it, the more the value will go up. You may have a period of time where the value flatlines for a while, or, it hangs around. Maybe it even goes down a little. But if you hold it long enough, your value will go up. At the same time, every payment your tenant makes brings the loan balance down. And remember that your equity is the difference between what it's worth and what you owe. So this allows you to start here and push on both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
If you wait for the equity to grow, you cross your fingers and you hope. But if you let the loan balance go down, you 100% control that. You know what the loan balance is going to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. And I think, it, again, having been in the foreclosure business for a long time and seen a lot of these properties, especially HUD properties, they all need work, pretty much all of them.
Right.
Especially HUD properties. Fannie Mae fixes up a lot of their properties, if that's what you want to call it, but they do fix them up. And I would say more recently, they fix them up a little nicer than they did when I did it back in the 2010s.
I think they've realized that, look, if you can spend $20,000 and sell for $50,000 more, why would you not do that? I mean, especially since they're no longer overrun with a massive amount of foreclosures. The amount of foreclosures Fannie Mae possesses now has to be 5% of what they did 15 years ago, right?
Less.
Yeah, it's astronomically low.
Yeah.
So the thing is that now you have time to be deliberate and ask yourself, how do we maximize returns? 15 years ago, it was really about velocity, right? How quickly can we get out of this property that we've had to repossess? And they let the market handle the rehabbing and returning to condition of these properties. And there was money to be made there. Now, I think that, look, one of the things that I think is very realistic is there are less properties, there are less people challenged by their ability to make their monthly payments. And when you end up in a situation where that's an issue, you really have outs, right? Because you can sell, for most people, you can sell your house, you can pay your realtor. You might not get maximum price, especially if you've deferred maintenance, but you might even be able to take a couple of bucks away and move on down the road, unless you've really devastated this property.
Sure.
And so it may not be in a condition where it's going to sell for max value, like Sam talked about, right? But that's where the opportunity is, I think, in the current market from a real estate standpoint, is finding the transactions, not once they've gone all the way to Fannie Mae and been rehabbed, or maybe are in that system where everybody's standing at the bottom of this Fannie Mae funnel, like, oh, I would love to get a deal. You got to go further back in that process and find the properties that are potentially going to end up there.
Off market.
But like Dane talked about on Saturday, are not making their way to market with the problems yet. And now you can turn around and access that property before it ever enters that foreclosure system and get in front of the line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And those off-market properties really are where a lot of this gold lies. So that's why you really need to be an expert in finding distressed properties. However that is, whether you're going on Hubzu, whether you're going to auctions, whether you're looking at pre-foreclosures, whether you're looking at shadow inventory, and you've got to be an expert at finding these properties that need a little bit of work, have an owner that wants to get out, but that can't just put it on the market and get out because they're not going to get enough.
Right. One of the things I would tell you, Larry, my brother, who lives in Nashville, is a big bourbon guy. And at the end of the day, he goes out and he buys bourbon. And there are times he goes and finds bourbon, and he's able to buy it for $200 a bottle. He sells it for $600 a bottle. And the thing that he did during this bourbon craze the last 5 years, which is out there, is he went and he made himself available through Facebook groups, through popping into liquor stores, through popping in at meet and greet events, and other tastings and things like that. And the thing that he discovered, like lots of things in life, you've heard me say the phrase, real estate's a full contact sport. So is bourbon. And so the thing is, it's very hard to sit behind your computer and find all these deals. You have to find a real estate professional who understands, if I bring you a transaction and the math makes sense, you'll buy it. You'll put it under contract and go make it happen. Because then, correct me if I'm wrong, you call them every single time. And, we've all heard this cliche.
Of course.
If I could spend $1 and put it in a vending machine and pull the slot on the vending machine and $10 spit out in 6 months, how often would I do that? Every single time that I possibly could.
Right.
And so you have to stop talking about the idea that I want to be an investor and
do it
and go out there and play this game.
Yeah.
But it's a game you got to play like everything else in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, another good point that a lot of people we've talked to recently have brought up is not everything's a home run. You're going to hit a lot of singles to come across that one home run.
Absolutely.
And the bottom line is, like you mentioned to Jackie last week, you got to show up every day. You got to be on your computer every day. You got to be on the road every day looking at houses. You have to become that expert in distressed properties.
For sure.
And find them before they're all fixed up and rehabbed already, if you can, and B, find them before they're on the market. Those are two keys. If you can do that, sure. You're going to be in good shape.
Larry, let me ask you this. If there were like 10 mistakes I might make in a situation like this, would there be a book available that I might be able to refer to not make these mistakes?
The Bible? No. Actually, there is a book. And I just published this book, and you can pick it up at Anderson's bookstore in Naperville, or you can go to any of your, online bookstores and buy it. But if you'd like to get the ebook for free, it's called The Top 10s of Real Estate, 32 top 10 real estate lists that are literally proven and will absolutely max out your profit when you're investing, when you're selling, or when you're purchasing. Just simply text the word book to 630-921-0611, and I will send you a link to get a free copy of that ebook. And I guarantee you, if you read one chapter 32, which is going to show you how investors typically look at properties based on that 75% rule, then you and understand that, you're already way ahead of the game. But there's so many chapters in this book that, even things like staging your property, that sells properties. I have learned so much from Margaret Gear at Chicagoland Home Staging. Staging, if you have a vacant property and you stage it, believe me, it makes a huge difference, and it could make a huge difference in the amount of money you keep in your pocket because you'll sell it for more. So this book really just covers the gamut, everything real estate, from staging to financing to how investors look at properties, to what buyers and sellers like and don't like about negotiating, what are their hot buttons, just little nuances that most people just don't know, because most people buy or sell 2 homes in their life. You know, the majority of people do not purchase more than 2 or 3 homes in their entire life, and they're normally spaced way apart. So yeah, if you guys want to get that book for free, just simply text me 630-921-0611, and I will send you a link to get that ebook for free. Of course, you can go to Anderson's and pay $19.95 or whatever it is, but you know what? The ebook reads the same way, so I'd get the ebook for free.
Nice.
How are you doing, by the way?
That's all I got. I think we should wrap it.
Let me how's Hopalong doing?
The leg is bad.
Yeah.
So I would like to, let's not dwell too much on that, but I have sprained my ACL and my MCL, torn my meniscus, and have upon review with the doctors, have some bone spurs and some arthritis in my knee. So good times.
Oh man, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm sitting for the podcast. It's all right.
I
you know
am
what,
too.
Larry, at the end of the day, I appreciate the kind words, but look, the reality is we're all going to end up in the same place when all is said and done. And in the immortal words of Teddy Roosevelt, you can do one of 2 things in life. You could rust out or you could wear out. I'll choose wear out every time.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. We're all going to end up with the same size house and the same amount of money. So live your life, enjoy the quality of your life, the people around you. Having said that, I will see you on Saturday at 9 a.m. Guys, we're going to be live from WCPT on Saturday at 9 a.m. and we're going to have a lot of good stuff to talk about.
You got it, my friend. Looking forward to it.
All right, bud. I'll see you.
All right. You got it. Bye-bye.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So that's going to be a wrap on our show today. I hope this was helpful. If you're an investor, a DSCR loan is an absolute mammoth opportunity for you to get in. Even if you're not an investor, but you'd like to get into investing, you have a great credit score, and this is something that you're seriously considering doing, you need to talk with Dylan about this DSCR loan, because it absolutely is a game changer when it comes to investing. But remember, the key to investing, I believe, is exactly what Sam Prim said. And that is, you want to be an expert in finding distressed properties. And if you can find those before they hit the market, that's even better. So with that all said, I want to thank all you guys for joining us today on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. We're on Saturday again at 9 a.m. live, broadcasting from WCPT 820 a.m. throughout the Chicagoland area. And we are going to see you then. Remember, keep in mind that we have, this is a, like Dylan said, this is a full contact sport. So when you guys want to ask questions, if you have any questions about what we're talking about, what we're not talking about, when we're live, we can see those questions. So don't be shy, connect. And remember, the other thing about investing in real estate is networking. So join your local RIA and get out there and make it happen. And we'll see you on Saturday at 9.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience. Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.